Welcome to the Cross Border Interviews, the show where we sit down and dive into the insights of municipal political leaders from across Canada. Now, our mission on this show is quite simple. Shine a light on the dedicated individuals who day in and day out work around the council table to shape the communities that we call home. Now, while we often conduct our interviews virtually, time from time, we get out of the studio and visit the communities and the people that we speak to on this show. And that's exactly what we did for today's episode. Today, we got out of the studio and headed to Magrath, Alberta, where we sat down one-on-one with Magrath Councillor Josh Bourelle. Across Canada, our cities, towns, villages, and rural communities are alive with stories waiting to be told. Stories of innovation and economic development, resilience in the face of the housing challenges, and the financial hurdles municipalities overcome every day. At the Cross Border Network, we bring these stories to life. From coast to coast to coast, we're connecting Canadians to the issues shaping our communities and showcasing the people working tirelessly to make them thrive. With your support, we can expand our reach, amplify more voices, and shine a light on the challenges and triumphs of municipal life. For as little as $3.99 a month, you can help us grow and continue sharing the stories that matter most. Join us today and be part of this important mission. Together, we can tell more stories, build stronger communities, and make a real difference. Support the Cross Border Network now. Visit www.crossborderinterviews.ca today. Councillor, I want to thank you so much for sitting down with me and inviting me into your home and talking about yourself and talking about your duty to serve and also your community of Magrath, Alberta. I want to start by getting to know a little bit about you and get to know the persona behind the man, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Where did your sense of duty to serve your community come from, Josh?
I have... My first brush with politics was watching the Quebec referendum with my dad.
Why is that everyone's go-to?
Right?
like that was like the pivotal moment.
Was it? I don't know. That's what it was for me. I remember doing that. I've watched, my dad was always watching the elections and I just kind of followed along with it. I went to university and my initial plan was to be a pharmacist. And then the first year didn't work out very well. And so I had to pivot. And political science, I took a whole bunch of courses at the U of A. And the one political science professor that taught was just amazing. And he kind of opened up what you can do with political science. And so that just kind of got me on the route for being, in politics and studying politics.
So when did the transition from studying politics to becoming a politician happen? Because I've spoken to many people. You don't just wake up one day and think to yourself, I'm going to be a politician today. I'm going to run for council.
No.
Was politics something you always wanted to do, or was it something that came later on in life?
While I was going to university, I would always joke around with my professors and being like, well, you're teaching this. Why don't you actually do it? Why don't you run and make the changes that you're talking about? And then, again, through studies, I had this goal that I would run for something before I was 40. And my thought being that we need younger people in politics. It's usually seen as an older person's game.
Yep.
And so I thought that we need to have more younger people involved in their community. So that was my goal. By 40, I would run for something. I think I was about a year late or half a year late. But
was it always municipal that you wanted to get your teeth sunk into? Because you could have chosen provincial, could have chosen federal, could have chosen school board. What was it about the municipal that drew you to it?
Well, I feel like municipal has the most impact on people's lives. Like you can be an MLA or an MP and you can get removed from the people that you're supposed to be serving. Not all the time, but that, your focus can be elsewhere. But with municipal, it is everything that you drove in here on had to do with municipal politics and decisions and the sewers and the roads, everything. It's all municipal.
So in our pre-interview, before I cut you off, because I wanted to learn a bit on the record, you run in a by-election.
Yes.
What was the decision based on that? And I'm assuming it was just this term then? So
yes, just about a year and a half ago.
Oh, so 2023.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happened in 2023? Because could have chosen 21 to run, but what happened in 23? And then you would have made that before 40.
That's right. That's right. I would have accomplished the goal. No, it just wasn't the right time for my family. Okay. And that's the difference that a couple of years can make.
And was it easy to make that decision for a by-election? Because going into a term halfway through is kind of daunting in itself. So for you, what was that moment of going, okay, if not now, when? Because I could wait another 2 years till 2025 to run for the full term, but you said 2023, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Did you have community support?
Yep, I had some community support people that were encouraging me to run, and a spot opened up. One of the councillors moved out of town, right?
Best way to get into politics.
And he had family commitments that he had to live with, and so the spot opened up, and my family issues were resolved, and I said, this is the time. I have worked for municipalities in the past. I was a development officer with Cardston County, so the area around Magrath, and then in the city of Lethbridge. So altogether about 12 or 13 years of doing that. So I kind of understood what I was getting into. And so I had a background in municipal politics from the administration side.
So you born and raised in Magrath.
Yeah.
This is going to be a very weird question I get to ask very few people on this show. Did you know who your municipal politicians were when you were growing up? Because there's always that sense of, I'm going to make a change. But when you're young, you're like, who is this person? I know the mayor, and potentially because my dad knows the mayor, my mom knows the mayor. Did you have a understanding of what municipal politics was beforehand? And when you're now in the trenches, in the actual, around that table, is it sort of serendipitous saying, this is what they were dealing with when I was growing?
Yeah. Yeah. Not so much when I was growing up. I was pretty oblivious to municipal politics. Yeah. But when I was in my early 20s, when we were, first married and just starting a family, I knew who the councillors were. I was vocal. I wouldn't be afraid to, pull a councillor aside at church and say, hey, what the heck is going on? So now that I am on the other side of the table, I think, oh yeah, they really put up with me. Like I was grateful that they gave me the space, to question them and say, what are you doing? I had a little bit more, youthful vigor in my questioning probably.
So it brings up a good question because in your 2 years now, I'm not sure exactly when the election day was, but we'll just round it off to 2 years. 2 years in office, I can imagine you've come to the realization that every decision you make is not going to be popular and is not going to be loved by 100% of the people.
Absolutely.
How do you make those tough decisions? Because you're the one who has to raise your hand or vote yay or nay and then lay your head down at night. So how do you make those tough decisions for the best of your community?
There's a lot of different voices around the table. And I think that an important thing is you go to a meeting, having read the material, being ready and prepared, but be prepared to change.
Yeah.
And so when I get to the table and I get to say my piece and I listen to everyone else saying their piece, I can say, oh, you know what? I didn't think about that.
Do you actually get swayed?
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh. We have really good counselors. And there's a good camaraderie around the table. I think one of the important things when we're making decisions that not everyone is going to like is what's the reasoning behind my putting my hand up for yay or nay, right? And if I can explain that reasoning to people, I'm okay. We're ultimately looking for what's in the best interest of the town, not what's in my best interest. Yeah. And one of my favorite things that we do when we're talking taxes, and
the greatest part of any municipal politician's life is right? When you're talking taxes. Okay,
talking taxes, and what I like that our administrator does is brings our houses, and we talk about the numbers for our houses, and we know how it affects us, and so we're able to tell people, look, this is hurting me too. Like this isn't my favorite thing either. But this is what we need to do for the town.
When you get elected, you have a very quick window because through a by-election, you have to catch up to speed, but you also have to catch up to speed to what your fellow councillors. During that transition period from when you got elected to when you started making those very tough decisions, did the council embrace you? Because sometimes it can be lonely when you're the new guy on the block and you're the only one in the room who's trying to catch up, because you seem like someone who wants to ask questions and wants to make sure you're making the best decision. And you talk about being able to be swayed into different opinions. And that's the best part about municipal politics. Did you get a sense that the council was willing to work with you and say, okay, yeah, let's let Josh be Josh for a few minutes and ask the questions that he needs to ask?
Yeah, I absolutely think they were. With anyone new coming in, I'm sure they were apprehensive about how I was going to be and what I was going to be like, and I think there's been a couple times at the table where my passion came out, and this is what I'm passionate about, but I think everyone around the table was, I don't know if the word is accommodating, but let me have that space to kind of get my feet wet. Having been in the administrative side of municipal politics, I knew what I was getting into. So getting up to speed wasn't like I knew what the MGA was, and I knew how it affected council, and I knew how council was supposed to work within that. So there were some structural things that I understood already going into it. So it was getting up to speed on what council was doing and what their reasonings were for things.
Again, another question I don't get to ask that many people, because you do have that administration background. Mm-hmm. So you've presented in front of council before. So you've been on both sides of the table. So this is a very both sides of the table question.
Yeah.
Which is easier? Making the recommendations or voting on the recommendations? Because from administration, you're making some very tough recommendations, because you're looking at the legal options, the actual, especially through planning, legal options in the MGA, and then council you're looking at from a community standpoint. Yeah. And at the end of the day, you're the ones who make the tough decisions. Do you look back on your days as administration and go, I wish I was back there right now and I didn't have to make this tough decision?
No, I love this. I enjoy being on this side of the table. What I am, because of my previous experience, I guess I have a little more, I don't know if grace is the word.
Okay.
Like I'm never going to be the one at the table that's trying to play gotcha with our, planner or an administrator or anything. I have honest questions, and this is where, after reading all the material, this is what I still need answered. And I trust our administration.
That's good.
They are the ones that have the experience that I don't. I've never been a CAO, I've never been a tax clerk or anything like that. So I trust that they know what they're talking about as well. There are times where I'll say, "Hey, what about this and this?" And they're saying, "Oh yeah, no, we consider that," and I can go on, but that's more for my own curiosity as opposed to checking up on them.
When you make those tough decisions, you just can't take into consideration the recommendations from administrations, but you also have to talk about the opinions. Yes. And I'll say that from the residents. Before I ask the traditional follow-up, what's apathy like in Magrath? Do you get a sense that people understand what's going on at council and are willing to give their opinion to you when you want it, or is there a reactionary response to things that go on? And I ask that to many different municipalities. You're not the only.
Oh no, I don't feel singled out. I think apathy is going to be everywhere. I think, having worked in a big city like Lethbridge, people are very cynical about what's going on with government, and when they get a letter from a development officer saying something's going to happen, they think the decision's already been made and that their opinion doesn't count. And what I always try and tell people is your opinion does matter. We had an issue come before us last year where, it was a rezoning question. I had it in my mind what I thought should happen. And then when we had people from the community come and talk about the history of that site and things that had gone on, I changed. My opinion of that changed. It's very important for people to come out.
Who wins in that? Go ahead.
I've been to a lot of public hearings where citizens come out and they're angry and they let her rip and they let us have it. And sometimes that's not as effective as coming and saying, these are my 4 points.
Yeah. As a municipal council, there's a balancing act that you have to walk, because we all have our own moral compass inside of us. We all have inside of us what we believe is right and right for the community. Who wins in that internal struggle when you make those choices? Because when you listen to the residents and they say one thing, and then your internal mind says, we need to go this way. Yeah. Who wins? Or is it all depends on the issue?
Yeah. Good question. Because as a councillor, we are tasked with, doing what's best for the community, not just right now. And so while there might be passionate opinions from citizens about an issue, we might need something for the next 50 years, that's going to change the way that our community might be able to develop. And so in those cases, that's where I hope that even though they come and share their opinions, that I'll be able to say, this is why I did it. You might not agree with that, but this was some of the things that I was taking into consideration that you might not have been thinking about.
And do they understand that?
For the most part, we have a good community, and we have good down to earth people.
Yeah.
That understand that there are some things. For instance, I've never wanted to blame previous councils for things that they did or didn't do. They made the best decision that they could with the information that they had. And there's been a debate in Magrath about developing on the west side of town, and that seems to have been neglected or not as developed as the east side of town was. And so with this council, one of the things holding it back was we didn't have any sewer infrastructure over on the west side. And that's just basic. You can't have houses until you have that. And previous councils have wrestled with putting the money up to do the lift station for that. And so we just decided to do it. Like, it's got to happen eventually if we want development over there. So, people might not have been happy with spending the money on something that it's not going to be fully utilized right now. But for that whole side of town to grow and develop, it's going to be necessary in the future.
How important is it for that communication to come into play? Because when you make a decision, it's often, especially a contentious issue, there's always that internal moment of saying, oh, okay, I'm just going to step back. But for municipality, for councillors, you need to sort of talk to the people who agree with you and disagree with you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When that was going on, we made sure that our administration had like a really good information package on sewer lift stations. Like, how sexy is that of an issue, right?
Oh, trust me, I'm talking about it enough. I have nightmares and dreams about
right?
Like wastewater treatment facilities. Woo!
But a couple people, their feedback to me was that was really helpful. Mm-hmm. Like having a 15 slide presentation on sewer lift stations was good. And so it's good to tell people, this is what we're thinking of doing. This is why. These are the constraints that we're working in. And this is what we're hoping to achieve.
We live in a very polarized world right now. And I'm not saying Magrath is, but we live in a very polarized world where what's going on federally, what's going on provincially runs downhill. let's put it that way. Let's try to make it as nice as possible.
We were just talking about sewer lift stations.
Yes, let's say the sewer lift station runs downhill. In Magrath, do you get a sense that people understand that the municipal jurisdiction that you work with, that you talk about the roads, the snowplow, is your responsibility? Healthcare, education, provincial, passport, war in Israel, Palestine, it's in a federal jurisdiction. Yeah. Do you get a sense that people understand that if they need an issue solved, that it's a provincial jurisdictional issue, they go to their MLA? Or are you getting stopped, or is your mayor getting stopped, and that blurring of jurisdictional lines is taking place and you have to deal with it because they probably know you more than their MLA or their MP?
Yeah. No, that there's always going to be overlap in what people think needs to happen and who's responsible for it.
Is it hard to say that's not my issue?
Well, if you just say it's not my issue and leave it at that, then you haven't helped the person. Yeah. Right? So it's not my issue, but I think that's the department of so-and-so, right? Like that's provincial, and this might be the contact person that you can go to find out who to talk to, right? And so if you can give people a little more information, even if it's not your issue,
but how much is it they just want you to solve it because you're we elected you to do this, Josh.
Yeah.
We pay your tax, we pay your salary.
Pay your salary. Yeah, we're part-time. Yeah. We're not full-time counselors. Yes, people have issues that they need dealt with. But especially I think you get in trouble when you try and take on something that's not your responsibility.
And
if I say, you know what, sister so-and-so, I'm going to take care of that for you. And you can't. When it's not within your jurisdiction, you can't do that. And it just raises expectations, and then people are angry all around at you. So I think it's managing those expectations and trying to help where you can.
You joked about it for a second. Before I turn to the next segment, I want to ask, have you found the balance of public life and private life? Because the moment you walk out this door, You are counselor no matter where you go.
Yeah.
Go to the grocery store, go get a carton of milk. You are counselor.
Funny story about that. I was just at a meeting with parents. I have a daughter graduating, and I had to stand up and relay some comments from council to this group. And a few people said, "You're on town council?" I said, "Thank you for not knowing."
Thank you for not knowing that I'm on council, that you just elected me through a by-election.
Yeah.
Much appreciated.
Yeah. So not everyone knows. but
you have to hold yourself to a standard when you
Yes.
walk out this door. You can't just be going to the grocery store and just long johns and
yeah. I mean, when I go to the store with my kids, they understand that sometimes
do they know that dad's going to be 12 hours?
it could be like, and are you going to wait in the car? Are you going to walk home the 2 blocks? Cause dad's going to be 5, 10 20 minutes. So I think that's always
But
going
you
to be
found the balance so far?
I think I'm a part of the community as much as I can be. Right. And so there's not really I'm a counselor, I'm a citizen. I'm just a member of this community that's trying to make it better.
I want to turn to the village, the town, not village. I was just talking to a village, and that's why the town as a whole. And before I do this, I want to just preface this by this statement. This is a conversation between the councillor and myself. This is not a motion of council, not a direction of council, not a policy of council. This is his opinion and his opinion alone. It may line up with what's going on at council, but at the end of the day, he needs a majority of councillors to vote for something to pass it and move and get administration to do that. With that being said, for those who are about to send me emails, please send them to me and I will file them in the appropriate location because this is his opinion and his opinion alone.
You've said that a few times.
830. Counselor, in your opinion,
Yes.
as of recording this at the beginning of April 2025, what do you see as the biggest challenge or challenges facing Magrath today?
Good question.
That's why I asked the good question.
Right. Yeah.
That's why I'm the host and I don't have to answer these.
So Magrath is in an interesting spot, I think. We need to keep growing. We need growth. We need more population to give businesses a better base to serve. And so that's one of the challenges that we have. There's a couple communities around us that have grown a little faster over the last 20 years. And I feel like they're in a more sustainable spot than we might be. There's some people in town here that don't want, to see growth. They want to keep it the way that it is. And
so how do you balance that? Because there's people who probably moved to Magrath or have lived in Magrath and say, I love the way that it is.
Yes.
You start bringing in more people.
Yep.
You start bringing in challenges. And I'm not saying that that's not happening. I'm just saying that is that's their thinking.
Yeah. And that gets back to, being able to tell people I appreciate your opinion, but this is one of my core beliefs. Like this is my belief for this community as a whole. And I'm pro development. I want to see people come here. In order for that to happen, we need to have places for them to buy and to build.
Are developers knocking on your door?
We do have a large development at the front of town that could be, could be realized, but the developer's kind of holding on that. He's got other things going on right now. And so one of the things the town has done is the town is acting as developer to develop lots, building lots. And so we've taken on that risk to provide building lots. And then the builders are coming in and they are building homes. And I think over the last 5 or 6 years, I think the number was we've had 55 new home builds, which is amazing.
Huge. Yeah,
it is. And it's been very good for the town. And one of my beliefs is we need to keep that going. We need to keep that momentum going so that more people are coming to this town.
So what's the population you'd be happy with? Is there a number?
Oh, good question. My personal goal is I want to see the town get to 3,000.
And what are you at now?
We're at about 2,650, we're right around just under 2,700.
So about 400 people.
Yep.
Realistic goal, 10, 15, 20 years?
10.
Really?
That's what I think in order to keep the momentum going, that's what I would like to see.
Because you're growing right now.
Yep.
Like you talk about the 55 development.
Yeah.
So the initial the initial reaction is
can you withstand that growth?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't overload your systems, your wastewater treatment facilities, your lagoons, your sewers. Do you have a plan in place, or is the existing infrastructure already in place that it will not overload the capacity that you could go to?
Previous councils have been making upgrades to our infrastructure. We do have the capacity for those things to happen. So, I mean, we talked about the sexy
The wastewater treatment facility. Woo!
Yes, the lift station.
Yeah,
I mean that's one infrastructure investment that we've made that will help facilitate further growth. We're probably going to need another one of those to build out our system to accommodate more growth. But it's all very doable, and we have the system. The overall systems are in place to accommodate more growth.
How do you get away from the assumption that Magrath is just a bedroom community for Lethbridge? Because first time being here, I'll be the first to admit this.
Yeah.
And I've been drove through a bit of the community because I got lost because I typed in 830 at First Avenue, not West. So I got a little lost. It seems like you have everything here.
Yeah.
Like you can get away from that, but like how do you sell Magrath onto the developers? Because I know there's a unofficial official rivalry between yourself and Raymond, but Sterling, Lethbridge, what attracts people to come build out in Magrath?
It's we have a better our affordability is better than Lethbridge's.
Oh, trust me, I'm getting gas here.
Yes. Yeah. So affordability is a big thing. Community feel is another thing. You can lot sizes. I mean, you can go buy a house in West Lethbridge and get 5,000 square feet of property, or you can come here and get a quarter acre of just under a quarter acre. So there are amenities like that. One of the things that we would like to see is sort of like a sit-down restaurant, or some sort of other offerings that we have for people. When you look at the different municipalities around us, that's what if you're looking at apples to apples, that's what we're missing. And again, we need the population base before we can bring that in.
Okay, so you bring up a good topic, and that is affordability. And affordability is on the top of a lot of people's minds right now. People are going paycheck to paycheck.
Yep.
You probably know people who have struggled or been laid off from jobs, and I'm just saying that in general. While we traditionally think the province and the federal government have their role to play, and that's what they have to do, the municipality has a role to play as well in addressing the affordability crisis.
Yeah.
You have one big bill that is about to probably be sent to everyone's mailboxes in the next few weeks. How has the town addressed the affordability challenge, knowing that you want to grow, but growth costs money?
Yes.
Well, you can't do it on the backs of the people who are here.
Yeah.
You have to grow and get people here to then lower the taxes.
It is
like a Jenga piece that we have to play here. How do you
Yes.
play Jenga in the world that we live in when developers aren't as developing as quickly as they were 10, 20 years ago?
Yeah. Tenuously. And we try to be creative as we can.
Do you get a buy-in from the community? Besides the people who are we don't want to see it grow, do you get a sense that people want to see that because they understand that if they bring people in, my taxes are going to go low?
If we can get 500 more people in this town, that means 500 people are sharing the tax burden than were before. When it comes to taxes, and the property tax bill is coming out soon, one of the things that we've tried to do is this year we did give a small break on our mill rate. Something that other municipalities did in the past where we didn't, and we kind of kept our powder dry, if you want to say that. And now we're in the big thick of things when we have tariffs and all of these other uncertainties, where we're able to provide that little bit of relief. It's not a lot. And I understand that when
you're going to be blamed, that.
Yes,
because the education portion of
and I was just going to say, when people do get their property tax notice, we do have a one pager that outlines where that money is going and who is requesting it, and so we're trying to educate. There's like before with the
I think
different jurisdictions, you have to educate people.
And I think Minister McIver at the Alberta Municipalities MLC caucus out in Edmonton this year, he literally even said,
yes,
tell your residents to contact the provincial government
Yes.
because it's us. So
Yeah.
go talk to the Minister McIver, everyone.
That's right. I don't know if our one pager will have his email on it, but that wouldn't be a bad idea.
There you go. We learn together.
That's right.
While we talk about the challenges, and every municipality has its challenges, and it's completely understandable that Magrath is going through similar ones that I'm hearing across Canada.
Yeah.
What's the thing you are proud of? What's the thing you look at when you say the challenges that are here, but we've got this going for us? What's that X factor that Magrath is known for? We never talk about the good stories.
Yeah.
It's time to start talking about the good stories.
I might get in trouble here. I don't know what the good story. I mean, we have, to me, the good stories are the people, and it's the people that have kept things running in lean times, right? Those are the good stories to me. It's people. I remember years ago when there was discussions about whether or not the golf course could keep operating, right? And as far as I understand now, the golf course is thriving and doing well, and you know, they've made some adjustments and pivoted on a few things, but people are going there. You know, it's not as bleak as it was 10 years ago. So I think that's a draw for people. This one is a funny one because I've never really been a huge supporter of this, but I recognize the importance of it and the goodness that it is now. Does that make sense? And it's nothing major, but we have a trail system that we didn't have 20 years ago, right? And at the time when I was young and full of, you know, the world is black and white, you know, why are we spending money? Why are we putting money into this? And I think we've got a loop up at the front of town that people can walk on, and then
is that a man-made lake or
Yes.
okay?
Yeah,
because I drove by and I was like, that is the what?
Yeah,
What is this all about?
It's a storage retention pond.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's overfill for when the storm surge comes in, and
okay.
So there's a part on the west side of town, and then it'll feed into that to hold on the surge.
But your trail system just go through the entire.
So the it's slated to. There's plans for it to go from the front of town there, and to link up south of here. We have the fish pond.
Yep.
And then we've got a canal system, and the trail runs for, you know, there's a 2.5 kilometer loop or something, and then a 3.5 kilometer loop around there, which is, it's beautiful. It goes through a wilderness preserve, and it's, if you want to ever go see some whitetail and muley deer, you can go down that and walk around that trail and see anything you want. But growing up, I didn't think that was a big deal, and I thought it was kind of a ridiculous thing to spend money on, but gratefully there were other people that had the vision for that, right? And so I think that's a fun amenity that we offer people, and it gets people out and gets people, you know, interacting with one another. During COVID, it was a big thing. Like when people were stuck indoors, you could walk outside, right? And so the number of people that we saw on that trail, it kept people, you know, connected. One of the other things that, again, I should have to watch myself. I was against a couple of things that turned out to be good things.
Look at that. Look, that's what you can tell all the people who are against the things that you want to change.
Yeah.
I was just like you.
Yeah. About 7 or 8 years ago, the province came and gave us money to revitalize our school, modernize our school. Yeah. And, you know, when the town and the school board and the county got together they were looking at the plans and what it was and what it could be, the town put in some money to the project and created another building so that the school could house students there, and it afforded the school remodernization to get, you know, a bigger commercial kitchen for food studies and things, that also offers like food during games and things. But it was a bigger one than we would have had before. And then also we got a black box theater where the community can have plays and things like that, concerts. And so again, at the time, I remember the meeting, and I remember the person who said, "Josh, this is going to be good." But I remember being at the meeting thinking,
was it a counselor?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
Just another prominent member, just a good man in the community. And I had brought up some point, you know, we don't have the money for it and whatever else the arguments were. But it turned out to be a good thing, you know?
Yeah. I hate to look backwards, but looking back when you were rising against the machine to
Damn the man.
Exactly. Do you regret it?
No.
Because at that time you thought you were doing the right thing?
Yeah, I was learning. And if I didn't look back on it, and if I wasn't able to go on a podcast and admit that I was wrong in the past,
Is it hard to admit you're wrong, especially in municipal politics? Because you want to be perfect and you want to get reelected or potentially.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Because that's what the provincial and federal government, the analogy is, they're only doing things just to get reelected, right?
Yeah. I feel like if we don't do municipal politics different, then we're going to end up like the province and the feds. And so for me, I'll admit that I'm wrong. I'm happy to do it because I'm not the same person that I was 20 years ago. And just when I look out, in this town especially, I've grown up here. I know people for, 40 odd years. They're not the same as they were back when I was younger. And you have to give them the space to grow. And I hope they'll give me the space to grow. But that means I'm okay admitting that I'm wrong. And because it's not about me. There was one mayor, this was a few terms ago, maybe. He said one of his buttons for getting elected was, "It's not who's right, it's what's right." And that's
perfect.
That stuck with me ever since. And so I'm okay admitting that I'm wrong and telling people that I was wrong when new things come out. But I try and make sure that the decision I make is based on good reasoning at the time.
So I'm cautious of time. I'm just looking at the clock here, and 45 minutes. And
I didn't know it was that long.
We're at 35 minutes right now. I tried to go to 45, but when I looked, I was like, oh, well, I haven't even got to the second last segment. So I'm going to turn to the second last segment. And that is, we have a very important date municipally coming up in October of 2025, and that is Election Day.
Yes.
Now, you don't have to tell me if you have. You can tell me if you're still deciding, but have you made up your mind if you're going to be putting your name off for reoffer?
We went to the spring session of Municipal Affairs Conference, and they actually had everyone raise their hands that we're going to run again. And then the people who weren't running had to raise their hand. Like it was in kind of abrupt and in your face. And I am going to run.
Okay, because I was like, you haven't told me. Which side did you raise your hand on, Josh?
I keep you in suspense. But yeah, no, I feel like, I came in on a by-election and I still have things that I'd like to do. And
what do you see for the future of Magrath? In your role as councillor, or if you're potentially running for a different position? I'm not sure. I'm just going to put that out there right now.
I'm running for council again.
There you go. Okay.
One of the things that I've focused on, maybe because of my experience in the past, is I want things to be written down. Like I'm very much, I would like to see policy on something, if we're doing something well right now, is that documented anywhere?
Yeah.
Because if it's not, what happens when we're not there? And so that's kind of one of the pushes that I have. One of the things that, I guess you could say my agenda for running is...
It's not hidden anymore, everyone.
I don't know if it ever was, but I would like to see our land use bylaw simple.
Nah.
and but it goes back to, what is it that people can do?
Yeah.
Can we make that easier for them to do instead of going through, 10 different hurdles? What do we actually need to see from them? Right? What do we actually need to do? And so that's one of the things that I want to see is a land use bylaw that makes it easier for people to, be creative with their ideas and try and make the community better.
So let's talk about the community for the last segment.
Sure.
And this is the big question.
Oh.
The Sophie's Choice type of question.
It might be the other one.
You never know. Every community has a very unique atmosphere. Every community has a very unique tourism draw. Mm-hmm. Every community has that one thing that they yell at the top of their lungs that this is what makes our community great.
Yeah.
If there's someone who's listening to this and is meant to travel through Magrath, Alberta on a Sunday afternoon, where should they stop and see?
Stop at my house.
Yes. Yes.
So if you have any idea of the area, Sterling, Raymond, Magrath, Cardston, all predominantly members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Yep.
That's that was the settlers that came in the 1900s. we're cognizant of the fact that there are a large concentration of members of that faith, but there's also people in our community that aren't. And so, how do we reach out and make a community?
Yeah.
Right? How do we make it so that people don't just see it as a place where, you know, the LDS people come to? But I think that one of the things that we've been able to do is to make it, we try and make it family friendly. It's a safe community. Like when the police come and do their stats, I love it. It's like, it's so great because the RCMP will say, oh, we had a 400% rise in this, you know, property damage. And that means there was like 4 of them, right? And so, and sometimes they're the same person. So it's not like it's an epidemic, you know, a huge crime spree going on. It's just, you know, an individual having a bad day. So as far as safety in the community, that was one of the things that drew me and my wife to come back. We were both raised in this town, and we lived in Calgary and Edmonton. We lived over in Windsor, Ontario for a bit. And we just decided that this was the place where we were going to have, we wanted our kids to go. To be raised. And, you know, I don't always know where my kids are, but I rarely have a hesitation.
Are you going to tell me that this is one of those communities that...
Sorry, that's
literally someone's walking across the front window and he just waves because that's what we do in this town.
That is.
Is this one of these towns where you know where all the kids are because their bikes are on their front lawns?
Usually, yeah. Oh. Yeah. I remember... my sister would come home, you know, late, and she'd say, "Oh, this and this happened." My mom would say, "No, her mom already called me. I know where you were," you know. And so we had one of my son's friends. His mom had a text chat of "Where's my son?" Right, like whose house is he at? She knows that he's going to be at one of these 6 houses. Where is he?
Who's that? Who's got him today? Are you keeping him for the night?
Yeah, and I love that.
It makes it unique, though, doesn't it?
I think so. We've had people move here from Calgary with children who don't understand that at the first part, right? And so it takes a while for them to be like, "Oh, yeah, I can just he didn't come home after school. Maybe I'll check here." You know, there's a freedom that kids have. And it's a freedom that parents have too. Like I don't worry where my kids are, and maybe I should a little more.
As they say that on the podcast.
That's right. Family services don't come over here.
Final question, and you kind of answered in that last question, but I have to ask it because it's the $1 million one. What makes Magrath such a unique place to live, to work, and to raise a family?
I think we have almost everything that you need. If your focus is on making, you know, millions and millions and millions of dollars in your career, probably not the place to come here. Although there are those stories as well. If you need a place that's safe, that has the amenities you need, that's going to give you and your family the quality of life that you want to have, this is the place. We're close to everything. With an affordability factor that makes it all possible.
Josh, I want to thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris.
This has been a pleasure. It is my first, but not last time in Magrath now.
Hope so.
And I'm looking forward to go do a little tour after this interview. Yep. So thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking about yourself and Magrath. It's a pleasure to meet different people from different municipalities across Alberta. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Cross Border Interviews. Now, if you enjoyed today's conversation and gained some valuable insights, be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. And if you can, follow us on all the social media channels at Cross Border Network. Now, to learn more about the communities and the people we feature on this show and our sister shows, please visit us online at crossborderinterviews.ca. Now, your support means the world to us, so share this episode with your friends, your family, and yes, even your community, and help keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll be back with a brand new episode of Cross Border Interviews soon.